The challenge arose at Cariloop just about a year ago, late in 2024, when we recognized that from a sales perspective, things were very black box, and that I was providing Salesforce support, but it was very much in a ticket-based support. It wasn't consultative. It wasn't driving a better ecosystem. It was, I need this field to do this, or I need an automation that does this exact thing. And we actually had some leadership changes at the beginning of 2025. And one of the challenges one of the opportunities, I should say, that arose from that was that we actually established RevOps as a function. We didn't previously have a RevOps function. We didn't even, frankly, really have marketing ops or sales ops. We just kind of had side of the desk support of the growth organization, which at Cariloop, growth is marketing, sales, and customer success, to generally support that. And one of the first things we noticed was that there were some very critical fundamental issues in the way that we were utilizing our CRM, the way we were tracking things. Knew that we wanted to develop this. I knew I had enough experience in Salesforce to do some of the elements. I know I'm also not a Salesforce master, and that there are certain technical pieces I didn't know. But more importantly, we needed someone as a consultative partner who really understood how this worked and how they could help define an end-to-end process, considering all the elements to not only fix what we know needed fixed, but fix all the things we didn't realize needed fixed in this process. And that is from, again, the beginning of the technical configuration through the education and consultation elements out to reporting and being able to follow up and take action. So we identified that we needed to start looking for a partner. I actually had heard of and had some brief connections with Tate, the CEO of RevBlack, through a previous connection. And so I reached out and was like, RevOps as a service is what we're looking for. There aren't a ton of businesses that offer that. We weren't really ready to hire a full-time employee, or even maybe better, if we weren't ready to hire one, we didn't know how we were going to find that perfect person that could do all these things. We eventually need someone to manage this and analyze and run with this long-term, but we also need the consultative elements. We needed the technical abilities to make these things happen across the ecosystem, primarily Salesforce, but even dipping into HubSpot and a few of the other SaaS products in our suite. So we identified and found RevBlack after, again, the personal connection. After I caught up with Tate and understood where RevBlack was, I realized you guys were the perfect partner for us. You guys offered that scalable support, very similar to other Salesforce providers we had in the past, but again, through a lens of being able to be both consultative and prescriptive and make it happen. Some of the challenges we had in the past, we worked with some decent Salesforce partners in the past, but in my experience, a lot of partners are good at one of two things. Either they're really good at consultation and helping you paint the picture and understand the big picture, but then it falls apart when you have to do it unless you can pretty much do it all yourself. Conversely, some very, very technically sound folks that can go build whatever you want. But the issue is, again, we didn't know the right way to build these things. We didn't realize what we were missing. So RevBlack was the perfect mix of the two of those, the perfect solution for us. And after going through the scoping and onboarding process with RevBlack team, we realized this is exactly what we needed. You guys have the expertise in all those different domains in terms of understanding, in terms of education and consultation, in terms of the technical abilities to make it happen, but also partner the whole way through, even training and deployments with the team, so that we can ensure that we're doing this the right way as we go through it. Our particular challenge, the biggest thing we identified was what we viewed as a just simple pipeline process, but it was actually bigger than that. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about RevBlack is they took us back to the buyer journey matrix approach, which helped us truly analyze the buyer's journey from the very, very first time anyone would ever probably hear about Cariloop, the whole way through to close wanting a deal and handing it off to the CS side of things. Taking that step back required collaboration internally, but also the guidance of RevBlack to really drive at a more holistic approach to this problem. I can guarantee you, if we didn't partner with you guys, we were going to end up taking way too tactical of an approach here and just looking at very specific elements within the pipeline, within stages, certain fields, certain automations. We weren't going to take a step back, get out of the weeds, see the whole forest through the trees type of thing to really understand this process end to end. When we did that, we identified a ton of different opportunities to change a lot of things, but make some very fundamental changes in the way Salesforce works. One of the challenges that I've always driven me crazy with my entire career working with Salesforce is I call it the barrier between leads and contacts, opportunities, and accounts, going from a single object to these three objects. And when you mix in the way that, for instance, HubSpot has just simply companies and people and contacts and their singular objects, it's a mess. So when you're trying to map this ecosystem, you always have this pinch point down to a lead that then expands back out. It inherently leads to lost data. It leads to messy processes. It leads to these queues that are unmaintained and just a mess of things. So identifying that what we want to do, it's having the backing that it's okay to get rid of the lead object if it doesn't work for you. And for our company, it didn't really work. We had people in pre-pipeline stages, people who weren't actually selling to yet, that we needed to track, we needed an ecosystem around. But making that technical flip was the first big like light bulb moment of this process, that like we are going to eliminate that massive pain point. Rather than trying to work around that pain point, we're going to eliminate that pain point and set the structure up. And through that process, it really helped us to find, again, the pre-pipeline elements of that prospecting stage of what really were those stages? How did things progress there? We identified a ton of gaps in our current process, regardless of the ecosystem, just from the human elements of what we were doing, how we were leaving a lot of meat on the bone in situations by not effectively managing the prospects, managing our database so that the correct actions could be taken from a nurturing perspective. We did that with RevBlack's help. We took this buyer journey approach, helped us identify not only that big technical shift moving away from the lead object, but also how we would redefine our pipeline process. So that was the first big aha moment. The next big element that came in was actually working through that process. Again, I'm a data guy by trade. That is my job here. I'm an analytics director. I am not a sales. I'm not even in the growth department. So it absolutely required collaboration. And one of the things that I loved and really like helped throughout this process was RevBlack's willingness to work with cross-functional stakeholders across our business to connect with and develop even personal relationships with some of the folks in our growth team that we really need to drive a lot of this information. RevBlack had a great script. They had a great general plan, but they wanted to make sure it really fit our business and it was truly going to work for us. And most importantly, at the end of the day, that it was truly going to drive a difference in the revenue in our business. That was the biggest goal of all this. That was our North Star that we kept coming back to, of how is this going to impact the way that our team works to specifically drive more revenue and to actually see return on this, not just be a fun, clean, pretty system that doesn't actually really accomplish anything other than being fun and pretty. So taking that revenue first approach, taking that holistic step back, working through cross collaboratively with these different departments to get all the information we needed, and then being able to take that very high level picture that was painted from our sales team and our sales department and leadership, break that back down to the elemental components from the technical perspective that we needed to approach, creating the game plan for how we make that happen, and then being able to roll that back up into the big story to understand how it worked. It's a tough thing to do, to get high level, get granular, fix all the things, and then have it reconnect back and be full circle. And the RevBlack team did an awesome job with that across multiple different RevBlack stakeholders we worked with. The other things that we did that really make a difference is introducing a lot more automation and movement through our pipeline. One of our biggest challenges previously was, I call the mystery opportunities that we had. Things that were in certain stages or certain probabilities and at certain points of the process that sound fine until you look at the details, and then they made no sense. How is this thing, in our alignment stage, like right on the doorstep of being committed and getting to contracting, and we haven't emailed them in 3 months? Like, how did we get here? Like that can't be right. There's just no way these people are actually on the doorstep. So one of the things we did is we really worked through granularly, again, in collaboration with the other departments at Cariloop, how we would be able to accomplish this with required fields for different stage changes, making it a much more consistent process while also baking in flexibility. That's another piece too, which I'll say at Cariloop, but I think every sales team in the history of sales teams would tell you that, well, nothing's standard. Every deal can be different. Everything can be a little different. Yes, they can. And there's a way to approach a solution, and RevBlack really helped with this, where it can be both rigid and flexible at the same time. You don't have to pick one or the other. You don't have to bash your head into a wall and force your sales team to do things that are just not optimal for them and aren't going to have the best results for them, while also doing things in a level of flexibility that isn't going to just blow up the data ecosystem on my side and blow up our CFO and our CEO's ability to take these reporting insights to the board. That was another key piece of this, was rolling this reporting up to a board level to present it to our board of directors in a way that was clean, concise, accurate, and digestible. It was a lot of Excel workbooks and guess and check and move this number over here, and that doesn't look good, and let's calculate this way, and all that is gone. You guys helped us establish a very clean element in terms of pipeline reporting and pipeline projections. You guys helped us define a lot of things with again, I took that buyer's journey approach, the buyer journey metrics that we developed, which are really these critical elements that we didn't even necessarily consider. We thought about close ratio, we thought about the velocity through the pipeline and conversion rates from stage to stage. We weren't necessarily thinking of these different elements of how they play out, where understanding how the cost of doing nothing being discussed at this point in the journey can be used as a critical data point to not only influence deals and help paint that picture, but add a little urgency from a buyer's perspective, but also provide the information back to us that we're going to be able to analyze into the future what this really does and how having this conversation truly is an inflection point. So even things that we don't have the data on yet, we've now established the frameworks for how we're going to get this information. So what I'm able to do at the end of 2025 is going to be miles ahead of 2024, but what I'm able to do in 2026 is going to be even miles ahead of 2025. And that's what's exciting, is we've set up an ecosystem that's going to continue to provide new opportunities for improvement, not just opportunities from an object product perspective, but opportunities for us to grow and improve the way that we analyze, the way that we approach our go-to-market strategy, and really take an end-to-end approach to this. We are still in the process of deploying this, where we are on the doorstep of deployment. I don't have the revenue results out the back door, even though I'm confident they're going to be here. But a couple places we've already seen just from the incremental changes we've made, along with some of the shifts in mindset that RevBlack's helped open our eyes to. Our pipeline reporting is more clear than it's ever been, and we actually believe and understand what's in our pipeline. I'm looking on another screen here on the pipeline stage metric on our Salesforce dashboard. I trust this number is actually opportunities that are going to close this year and have a good chance of closing, and understand where they are and the realistic chance of that. And that just came from the education and the consultative elements of what RevBlack did, not only with me and my team, but with our sales department and our marketing teams, in order to solidify and standardize before the technology is in place to do it. We've already seen gains in that perspective in terms of maintenance and what we're able to do there. And the other big thing is, again, these buyer journey metrics that we have set up. The level of depth, again, I've done RevOps reporting, I've done all types of reporting, marketing ops, sales ops, but there's specific elements that aren't always the most obvious to someone who does not work in this space every day, that when the RevBlack team calls them out, it's like, oh, of course we should do that. How have we not been doing that? That seems so basic, but you don't think of these things if you don't do this every day. So again, going back to wrap it up, the partner that was with us in the trenches, who was able to help us see the entire battlefield, who's able to help us design and execute a plan, and then understand how we're going to continue to build upon this, with or without RevBlack in the future. I don't think we're going anywhere. We're going to use RevBlack for forever. We love them, but they've also set us up that if we decided to bring RevOps internal in the future, we've set up an ecosystem, a process, reporting, and an end-to-end picture that would be manageable by our team now, that would not have been and was frankly a pipe dream even 8 months ago.